Hello my dear grade 9 students. So today we are going to start a fresh new lesson, the lesson number 4 in your grade 9 science syllabus. So the lesson number 4 is going to reflect about the basic concepts associated with the force, right? The basic concepts associated with the force. This is the fourth lesson in your science syllabus. So my dear children, first of all, before I'm going to start the lesson, let me ask you a simple question like, what do you mean by a force? Why do we need to apply forces? What is the purpose of applying forces? By applying forces, what kind of a thing that we can do, or like what sort of things that we can do by applying forces, right? So you know that simply a push or a pull can be considered as a force. Simply a push or a pull can be considered as a force. So by applying forces in our day-to-day life, we do several works, right? We do several works. Actually, if you take each and every work that we do in our day-to-day life, we are applying certain forces, right? It can be a push or a pull, right? So without these forces, without the application of forces, we can't do any kind of a work. Most of the times we apply forces, right, on objects and on different types of organs like in our arm, right? So if you want to write, for an example, if you want to write by using our arm and the fingers in our hand, we're going to push and we're going to pull the pen here and there by using fingers and our arm. So in the way, now when the pen is moving here and there, the ink which is on the pen is utilized to write down the words or whatever the types of letters that you are using to write. So that's how this force thing works, right? So when I'm going to lesson, I'll be teaching you what kind of a thing is called a pull and what sort of a thing is called as a push. Simply, a force means a push or a pull, right? A push or else a pull can be named as a force in simple, right? So here within this figure, you can see that there are several kids and they are moving a cart by applying a force, right? By applying a force. So you know that in order to move this cart, one or at least one person should have to pull it or else push it. So here, in order to move this cart, these people had to apply a certain force on it. So the basic thing that we can do by applying force is that we can move objects from one place to another. We can move objects from one place to another by applying forces, right? That's the basic thing, very basic thing that we can do by applying forces. So we'll be discussing furthermore things related with the force, or what kind of things that we can do in our day-to-day life by applying forces when you go to the lesson force, when we are studying about the lesson of the force, and when we are studying about the effects of the forces, right? So basically you know that this thing already, a force means a push or a pull. So we'll be identifying what are the basic concepts related to the force within this lesson part. Right then, so let's see my children, what are the things that we are going to study under this fourth lesson of our science syllabus. So you already know that a force is a push or a pull. So first of all, I'll be giving you a simple introduction, right? I'll be giving you a simple introduction on the force. So here we are simply discussing, right, like what kind of a thing is a force, what are the units that we use to measure the force, what kind of an instrument that can be used to measure a force, and those sort of stuff will be discussed under the introduction related to the force thing. Okay, and like I said earlier, I'm going to introduce what do you mean by a push and what kind of a thing that can be done by applying a push, and what is called a pull, and what kind of a thing that we can do, right, by applying pulls. So we'll be defining what do you mean by the force, and we'll be identifying what are the pushers and pulls. Okay, so after that we'll be discussing about the magnitude of the force. Magnitude of the force, right? Magnitude of the force. So a magnitude of the force means, here children, I'll give you a simple definition for the magnitude. Magnitude means the value, the amount, value or the amount of a force which is being applied on a certain object, right? The value. Still you don't know, right, what is the unit that we use to measure the force. But however, it can be measured by using a certain unit. I'll be explaining what is the unit that we use to measure the force under the magnitude part. But however, you just for now remember, we can measure the value of pushers and pulls that we apply in our day-to-day life. There's a special kind of an instrument that we use to measure these forces or push and pulls, right? So magnitude of the force means the value indicated by the force, the amount of the force. So we'll be defining about the magnitude and how to find out the magnitude, and what is the instrument that we use to measure the magnitude of a force, and so on. Okay, so these things will be discussed under the magnitude of the force. Then after, we'll be discussing about another factor related to the force, which is the direction of the force. The direction of the force. So if you have been to a communication center or else to a bank, right, most of the times these communication centers or banks, right, sometimes in food cities, supermarkets, right, the doors of these things or these these halls, right, the doors are like made up with glass with an aluminium frame. Okay, so there is a board. Sometimes the board is not there, but sometimes the board is there, right, saying that pull, sometimes push. So you may have come across with situations that you are going to open the door by pushing it. However, the door is not getting opened. Why? Because that paper says pull, right? So you have to pull it, not to push it. So you can see here, there are two different directions for the pushers and pulls separately. The same door over there cannot be opened by pushing, but however, by pulling we can open it. Okay? By pushers and pulls, we apply forces, but however, in order to manage, right, in order to manage the efficiency, or else in order to manage the efficient, right, in order to manage the efficiency of if you want to do the work more efficiently, there is a certain way of applying a force. There is a certain direction of applying the force. You can't do the same work by applying a push if it is given to pull. right? If you need to pull, then you need to pull. There are some certain cases that we can push and pull by applying a push or else a pull. We can do the work, but however, there are some certain special kind of situations where we need to apply a pull only in order to do the work. By applying pushers, we can't do it at all. A simple example is opening a door in those kind of centers. If the label is saying to push, then you have to push it. If the label is saying pull, then you have to pull it. Otherwise, the door won't open, right? So there is a certain direction of application of force. Without that particular direction, you can't do the work. We have to apply the force according to the direction. According to the direction that the object needs in order to operate, right? Otherwise, we can't do it. Okay, so that's how the force thing is going to work. Remember always, for pushers and pulls, there are two different directions, and we'll be studying about these directions, and we'll be doing several activities to identify these directions and how the direction is going to be utilized in doing our day-to-day activities. And the other thing is that the point of application. So in simple, I'll mention what do you mean by the point of application. Point of application means it's a point where you are going to apply the force on the object, right? It's the point where that you are going to apply force on a certain object. By changing the point of application, you can change the direction of motion in an object, right? You can change the direction of motion of an object by changing the point of application, right? So for a simple example, now I'm going to keep my pen in here. So if I'm going to push it like this, then it's turned into a certain direction like this. So the point of application is at that corner. If I'm going to push it like here, then the direction is somewhat changed, right? The direction is obviously getting changed to a different direction. So by changing the point of application, we can direct or we can move object to different positions. Okay, so the point of application, we'll be discussing about the point of application in further when we are studying about the lesson part related to the point of application. Then the final one, the last one, the graphical representation of a force. Graphical representation of a force. So graphical representation of a force means here we are discussing how to represent a force by using a figure, a simple figure, by using a graphic or else a figure, small bit of a picture, by drawing a picture. We are representing a force, right? How this force is going to be used, or how this force can be represented by using a simple bit of a picture. So this thing will be discussed under the graphical representation of the force. So my dear children, these are the basic things that we are going to study within this lesson, right? First of all, we'll be identifying what do you mean by a force. Then after that, we'll be discussing several properties related to forces. Then after that, finally, we are discussing how to represent a force graphically or by using a figure, how to represent a force or how to draw and show a force. So those are the things that we learning at the lesson. Then as usual, we'll be discussing several questions finally related to the forces. First of all, we'll be starting textbook questions, and after that I'll be giving you some extra questions to answer. So stay with me till the end of the lesson, and let's carry out the force lesson, and we'll study about the force lesson thoroughly, right? Okay, so now let's move on to see the first topic of our lesson. What do you mean by a force? So already I told you that what is called as a force. What sort of a thing is called a force? So you know that force is simply called as a push or a pull. Force is a force simply can be defined as a push or a pull. So simple definition for a force is a push or a pull can be considered or is called as a force, right? So force is a push or a pull that we apply in our day-to-day life. So my dear children, first question given here, the first and foremost question given for you guys, what is called a force? So now I'm going to write in this box what do you mean by the force. Okay, so can define the force like this: a push or a pull is simply a push or a pull is simply called a force. So force is a push or a pull in simple terms. Okay, in very simple terms, force means a push or a pull, my dear children, right? Okay, so this is the best definition or the simplest definition for a force. Okay, a push or a pull, right? So here, first of all, we'll be studying what do you mean by a push or a pull. Now, in the first figure given here, you can observe there is a person. There is a person, and the person is lifting an object. And the second, here you can observe there is another person, and he is opening or closing a door, right? Opening or also closing a door. Then there is an athlete who is kicking a football, right? Who is kicking a football. Now, in each of these instances, in order to move the object, here, in order to lift the object, here, in order to move the door, right? Either to his side, like this, or away from the side that he is going to stand. Okay? Then, at that place, the athlete. Now, here obviously you can see that he is kicking the ball to a different location or to travel to a different place. So, in each of these places, my dear children, you can see that the objects are moved from certain place to a different location, right? Here, when the person is lifting up that object is going to move or it's going to displace to a certain height, right? When he's going to lift that thing, you could observe that from the ground level, it is raised to a certain distance or to a certain length or to a certain height, right? Height is the most probable one, height, right? So, in the second instance, when the person is applying a push, the door is getting closed. Here, by applying a push, right, the door is moved to a different location. Or by applying a pull, he can open the door. So when pulling, door is coming towards the person, and when pushing, door is moving away from the person. Okay, door is moving away from the person, right? However, no matter the way, right, the force is being applied, whether it is a push or a pull, no matter whether it is a push or a pull, the door is ultimately, finally, is getting moved to a certain direction, right? So here, when you apply a push or when you apply a pull, no matter whatever the instance, the door is obviously going to move to a different location from the initial position. It's been moved to a certain location. In the third instance also, that athlete is going to kick the ball to a certain direction by kicking. Kicking means actually we are applying a certain push onto that object, right? Now, when you kick to something like this, you apply a certain push to move that object to a certain different location, right? So, in each of these instances, you can observe by applying a force, you can move a certain object. You can move a certain object. So, in each of these instances, the person is applying a push or else a pull. Now, in here, if you take the first figure, the person is grabbing that object and pulling towards him. That's how it's been lifted to a certain location from the ground level. So here you can observe the pull. So upon pulling, you can clearly see that the object is coming towards the person, right? Object is coming towards the person. When pulling, object is coming towards the person. Okay? In the second instance, you can observe, right? So we'll imagine that this person is going to open the door. Okay, not to close the door. Let's imagine that he's going to open the door. So in opening, he should have to hold the the lock, this grabbing part, the metal ball like this. Then he's going to apply a force to the direction which he is going to stand, means towards him. If the force is being applied like this towards the person, then it is a pull, my dear children. It's called as a pull. So he is pulling the door and moving the object towards him. The door is being moved towards him by pulling the object. Okay, by pulling the object. So in both of these instances, you can observe the pull. Okay, pull. So clearly we can see that upon pulling, an object is coming towards the person, right? An object is coming towards the person when something is being pulled. Then the third figure here. When the athlete is going to kick the ball is pushed to a certain direction, and always that direction is away from the person. So when this athlete is going to when this athlete is going to push the ball, actually if he want, he can pull it. But however, within this figure, you can see that he is going to kick the ball to a certain direction. Kicking means pushing, right? Sometimes they can keep the ball in here, like this kind of a place. Then by holding the leg, he can pull towards the direction of the player. Okay, but however, within this figure, the athlete is going to push the ball to a certain direction by kicking it. So here it is a push. So when pushing like this, the object is moving away from the person. Object is moving away from the person. So once again, my dear children, let's see what's going to happen within each of these figures. The first figure, lifting an object. Lifting means he is pulling the object towards him. When object is being pulled, right? When object is pulled, always that object is coming towards you. Second instance, I told you that we'll imagine that the person is going to open the door. So in opening the door, he is pulling the door towards him. Okay, he's going to pull the door towards the side of his. So by that way, once again a force is being applied. So special thing in here is that the force is being applied on the door to move the door towards the direction of the person. So this is a pull. This is a pull. So when something is being pulled, you can clearly observe that the object is coming towards you or towards the person. In the third instance, the ball is being pushed to a certain direction by kicking it. Right? By kicking, we are going to push the ball to a different location. So upon pushing, you can clearly see that the objects are moving away from the person. Objects are moving away from the person. So that's how pushers and pulls are going to work. So in here, you can observe what happens during a push and what happens during a pull. The person is, like he's going to tie a rope on the chair here. Now this blue color person is grabbing that wire or the string towards his side. So here you can clearly observe the force is towards like this kind of a direction where the person is there. So this is a pull. As the object is being moved to the direction of the blue color person over here, therefore the force applied by this person is considered as a pull, as the object coming towards him. Now if you check the second person, he is going to apply the force like this, so that the object is being moved away from the person, right? The red color one, he is like pushing the chair here, couch here, right? He is pushing the couch or the chair in here, so that the chair is being moved away from the person, right? So this is how the pushers and pulls are going to work. Remember, if it is a push, then the object is moved away from the person. If it is a pull, then the object is coming towards the person. Pushers and pulls. Forces are pushers and pulls. Right then. So here now you can observe two different figures. Can you now identify what are these two instances? What kind of a force is applied in these two instances? Let's see. In the first figure, you can see that a person is, like moving an object away from the side of away from the side where he is going to locate, or where he is being where the person is there. Now the person is applying a force to move the object away from him. Okay, applying a force to move this object away from the side of his. So you know that when you are going to move an object away from you, this is called like this. This is called a push. This is called a push, right? So a push is always applied on object in order to move an object away from the side of the person. right? Object is moved away from the person, away from the force, okay, away from the person. So when pushers are applied, the objects are moved to a different location, however, away from the person, okay. So push, force applied to move an object away from the person who is applying the force. Right. So this is what do you mean by, right? This is what do you mean by a push. So force applied to move an object away from the person who is applying the force, right? So this is the push. This is what do you mean by a push. So when applying pushers, object is moving away from the person, okay. Then the second one, here you can see that the person is grabbing this door kind thing and he is applying a force so that this object coming towards him, right? So that the object is going to come towards him like this in the figure. So the force is acting towards the person, right? So the force is acting towards the person over here. Now this is called as a pull. So I'll use a different color pen. Number 2, pull. Pull, right? Pull. So when pull is applied, you know that what's going to happen? The opposite thing of the push. Here, when pushing, force is applied to move an object away from the person who is applying the force. However, when pulling, that's for the push thing. Now here we are discussing pulling. The opposite thing. What is the opposite thing? Force applied to move an object not away, towards the person who is applying the force. Towards the person who is applying the force. If towards, then it is a pull. If away, then it is a push. So we can write the definition of pull like this. Force applied to move an object force applied to move an object to the direction which the person to the direction of the person, right? We'll write like this, to the direction of the person who is applying the force. Right, who is applying the force. So force applied to move an object to the direction of the person who is applying the force, right? So here the specialty is to the direction of the person. Here in pushers, away from the person, away from the person. In push, away from the person. In pull, to the direction of the person. Pushers and pulls. Okay. So my dear children, forces are simply called as a push or a pull. A push is a force which you apply on a certain object in order to move that object away from you. A push. A pull is also called as a force. However, when you apply a pull, the object is coming towards you, not away from you. So pushers and pulls both are considered as forces. Only the direction of the object which is traveling upon applying the force is getting changed in these two occasions. Those things are oppositely related to each other. When applying a push, if you can move an object to your right, then by applying a pull, you can move the same object to your left. Okay, so this is how the pushers and the pulls are going to work. All the pushers and all the pulls are considered as forces, right? All the pushers and all the pulls that we apply in day-to-day life are called as forces. So you know that, my dear children, you apply several forces in several instances in your day-to-day life. However, you might not have an understanding that you are going to apply a thing called force in moving these objects. So now you know that. Now you should know that you are applying a certain force in order to move objects to a certain direction. Without applying forces, we can't move an object at all. Definitely we have to apply a force in order to move an object. Otherwise, the objects are not going to move. They are going to be under rest. Okay, they are going to be under rest. So my dear children, these are the basic things related to the force thing, right? The basic introductions for the forces. Now let's see what are the things that we can do by applying pushers or by applying pulls. Means in simple, let's observe what are the things that we can do in our day-to-day life by applying forces, right? So here you are given the effects of force. Effects of force. So by applying a force, what can you do? So basically you know that when I'm starting the lesson, I told you that by applying a certain force, what we do here is actually we are moving an object, right? We are going to move an object to a certain direction. That's why we are applying forces in the first place, right? The main point of applying, or the main purpose of applying a force on a certain object is to move that object to a certain direction or to a certain place. That's the main or the first and foremost thing that we do in applying forces. Okay. So my dear children, let's see. When we push a book on the table, it moves. A ball moves faster if we kick it. But you cannot push and move a wall. Now, here they are saying three, not two, but three different examples. They have been used three different examples, right? Three different examples. So number one, my dear children, we push a book on the table, it moves. The obvious thing of force. When you apply a push or a pull, it's going to move as you have been applied with the force, right? As you are going to apply the force on the object, it's going to move, obvious. Second one, see, a ball moves faster if we kick it. So let's imagine that a football is coming towards you and you need to pass the football to a friend of yours. So the football is coming towards you, right? What you are going to do is, let's imagine that you are here. Ball is coming like this, right? From that end, from a different person, the ball is being passed to you. Now you are going to do is, you are going to kick it to a different direction like this. So it would travel more faster, even more faster than the speed which the ball is coming to you. Okay, ball is coming like this. You are kicking it like this. So it's moving even more faster. So that's how we pass a ball, right? That's how we pass a ball to a different person, a football, right? Ball is coming like this. Now you are kicking it like this, right? You are kicking it like this to move the object to a different location, right? So in that case, my dear children, in that case we apply force, but however, we are applying the force to the direction of the motion of the object, to the same direction as the motion of the object, we are applying the force. So if the force is applied to the same direction which the object is going to move, in that way, you can increase the speed of the motion of the object. That's why it is being pushed even harder. Oh, that's why the speed of that ball is going to increase. That's why it is moving even more faster than the initial stage. So by applying forces, you can speed up the motions of an object. You can move an object as well as you can speed up a motion also. But however, there are some certain instances by applying a force, you can't even move an object. This is an example. You cannot push or move a wall. You can't push a wall, no? Why is that? Because you are not applying enough force. If you can apply an enough force, then definitely that would break and move, right? Yes. Right. So there are some certain instances where the objects are not going to move at all because of the lack of value, right, which you apply, because of lack of value of the force which you are applying. Okay, right. Next point given, a single person cannot push and move a bus or a lorry. Thus it is clear that sometimes we can move an object by applying a force, or sometimes a force cannot result any motion. So there are some instances which we can't move an object. It's because that force is not enough to move that object. That's why it is being not moved. So there are some certain cases that the object is not going to move, right? That the object is not going to move even though we are going to apply forces on it. It's because that in order to move that object, we have to apply an enough force. So if there is no enough force, then we can't move that object. Okay, right then. When you catch a ball that comes towards you, a force is applied to stop it. The other case of the force thing. What's that? Catch a ball, come towards you. So here by catching means we are stopping the motion of the object. Right? Like this, we are grabbing it. Right? We are grabbing it. So upon grabbing, the motion is stopped. Let's imagine that a ball is thrown towards you. A ball is thrown towards you. So you're going to stop it like this. So you're pushing it. So when you're pushing it, the ball is coming and hitting your arm, it's going to fall down. Or else you're grabbing it like this firmly. So upon grabbing, once again, the motion of the object is going to stop. But however, remember, there are some certain instances you might not be able to stop. It's because that the force applied by you will not be enough to stop that object. Okay? You can stop a ball like this. However, can you stop a heavy boulder coming towards you by applying a force like this? No, you can't. Absolutely you can't, right? It's because that force is not enough to stop that object. Okay, that force is not enough to stop that object. So however, there are some certain cases where we can stop a moving object by applying a force. By applying a force, we can stop a moving object. Then, when you hit a ball with a bat, you apply a force to change the direction and the speed of the ball. So we discussed about the speed thing, right? So when you hit a ball with a bat, you apply a force to change the direction. This is important, my dear children. By applying a force, we can change the direction of a motion of an object. When playing cricket, when playing football, we can see these things obviously, right? A bowler is bowling towards the batsman in cricket, right? The bowler is bowling the ball towards the batsman. Then batsman is pulling, batsman is going to push. Sometimes pulls can also be observed, right? Like this. Okay. So, however, usually the batsman is going to push that ball to a different location or to a different place. Pushing it. By using the bat, he is going to push the ball to a different location. Pushing. When playing football, the ball is coming towards you. You grab it like this and you're going to stop it. Then by looking at here and there, then you're going to kick the ball to a different location. Right? Person is passing the ball, there is a goal and you're going to kick it. Ball is coming, then traveling to like this. That the kind of a direction. So in that case, you're changing the direction of the ball. Right? You're changing the direction of the ball. Ball is earlier coming towards this side and going like that way. Now, you are going to kick it to a different location like this. Okay, so like this, the motion of the ball. So we can change the direction of the motion of the ball upon applying pushers or pulls. Right? So direction of the motion can be changed. Direction of the motion can be changed by applying forces. Then next one, you can press a ball by keeping it on the ground and tread on it, right? Here you change the shape of the ball by applying a force. So here you can press a ball by keeping on the ground and tread on it. So you take a simple plastic ball. You can do it with the tennis ball as well, right? Take a simple plastic ball or else a balloon. So when pushing it, the shape of the balloon or the plastic ball is going to change, right? Obvious. Very obvious. So here you can, right? Here you can, like change the shape of the object. You can change the shape of an object by applying a force. So after getting lunch, let's imagine that you are bringing your lunch not in a box but in a wrapped paper. So after taking your lunch, what are you going to do? You're going to take that paper and be placed on your bag, right? Don't throw it, just place it on your bag. So in here, what you have done is very simple. You applied a force and you change the shape of the paper. So by applying forces, my dear children, we can change the shape, right? We can change the shape of an object. So these are several things that we can do by applying a force. I'm going to tell you an extra one which we can do by applying a force. This is really important for your next year. Okay? This is going to be really important for your next year. Is there any other thing that we can do rather than these cases? First of all, let's see what are the things that we have already learned. Number one, you can move a ball or you can move an object. Number one, by applying forces, that's the obvious thing, we can move an object. Number two, you can, we can increase the motion or we can increase the speed of an object. We can increase the speed of an object, number two, right? We can increase. Let's say that we can change the speed. That's more probable, no? We can change. That means we can even increase or decrease, whatever. We can change the speed of an object. Change the speed of a moving object. Change the speed of a moving object. Increase or decrease. Then, by grabbing a ball, we are going to stop the motion of an object. So stop a moving object. We can apply a force. Stop a moving object. To stop a moving object. Then to change the direction of a moving object, we need to apply forces. Right? To change the direction of the moving object, we can apply forces. Like playing cricket, like in playing football, that's the thing which is going to happen. So number four, to stop, to change, not to stop, to change the direction of motion of an object. Then finally, number five, like in here, to change the shape of an object. So these are the 5 cases or the 5 main things that we studied, right, as the effects of forces. These are the 5 main effects of the forces, but however, there is one. There is another one that you can do. What is that? What is that? There is another effect of a force. So this effect is going to be very important, very crucial in your next grade, grade 10. So that effect is, my dear children, by applying a force, you can rotate an object. By applying a force, you can rotate an object. Okay? A spinner when playing cricket, like he's going to apply a certain force like this, and he's going to rotate the ball. Right? So upon rotating, upon spinning, right, the ball is going to turn to a different location. So you can, rotate an object. You can apply a spin to an object like this. See, you kick it like this, then it's going to rotate like this. See? So we can rotate an object by applying forces. Okay? So there are 6 effects of force. Number 1, to move an object which is stationary. move an object which is stationary. Stationary means at rest, not moving. To move an object which is under rest. To change the speed of the motion. Okay, to change the speed of the motion. Change the speed of the motion. Number 2. Next one, number 3, to stop a moving object. Okay, to stop a moving object. Number 4, to change the direction of a moving object. Right? To change the direction of a moving object. Number 5, to change the shape of an object. Right? To change the shape of an object. Finally, number 6, to rotate an object. To rotate an object. So, we can apply pushers and pulls and we can get these effects. Right? We can get these effects. We can apply forces and we can result 6 effects, 6 different effects on a particular object. So these are the effects of forces, effects of applying forces, my dear children. At least one of these can be observed if you are going to apply a force. Okay, if you are going to apply a force on a certain object, out of these, at least one can be observed. If not, then you are not applying forces at all. At least one of these can be observed if you are going to apply a force. If not, then you are not applying forces. Okay, then you are not applying forces. But however, there are, like special cases where the force is not enough in order to move or in order to change direction or whatever. Okay, whatever, like the 6 that we have discussed. If the force is not enough, then either of these, like all of these 6 things, or at least one of these 6 things will not affect. However, if the force is enough, at least one of these effects should be there. Okay, there can be some cases where the force is not going to be enough and the object may not show any of these motions. But however, if the force is going to be enough, definitely you'll be observing at least one of these incidents. Right then, so I think you have got a good knowledge about the effects of the forces. Right, so let's head on to see what are the effects of forces. So accordingly, by applying a force, we can do, or we can we can effect, or we can apply, or we can we can give 6 effects, 6 different effects for a certain object. Okay, so now we are going to write down those effects. So my dear children, number 1, by applying a force, we can stop a moving object. We can stop a moving object, right? By applying a force, we can stop a moving object. Or else the opposite thing of that thing. What is that? Move an object which is under rest. Rest means stationary without any motion. Okay? To move an object which is under rest. Right? So we can apply a force on a certain object and we can move an object which is under rest. Number 2. Number 3, you know that we can either increase or else decrease the speed of an object by applying a force. So next one would be, in order to change the speed of an object, we can apply forces. So to change the speed, right? To change the speed, here changing means increase or, so we'll write it in here. Right? So to change the speed of an object. To change the speed of an object. So changing speed means to increase speed or decrease. To increase speed or decrease. Okay, to increase the speed or to decrease, we can apply force. Okay, we can apply force. This is the third one. Number 4, to change the direction of motion, we can apply forces. To change the direction of moving object, right? To change the direction of moving object, by applying forces we can change the direction of moving object, right? Then next one, the final one given in your textbook, the final one, the last one. Okay, that is to change the shape of an object. So to change the shape of an object, right? To change the shape of an object. To change the shape of an object. Then finally, I gave you that this thing is really important. I gave you the final thing that we can do by applying a certain force is to rotate an object. Final one, to rotate, right? To rotate an object. This is also called as moment of a force. Moment of a force. Moment of force. You'll be learning about the moment of a force thoroughly in grade 10. Okay, in grade 10 there is a whole lesson about the moment of a force, right? So these are the main things that we can do by applying a certain force on an object. First one, you can stop a moving object. Number 2, you can move an object which is under rest. Number 3, you can change the speed of an object. Change in the sense means you can either increase or else decrease the speed. The next one, to change the direction of moving object, you can apply forces. To change the direction of moving object, you can apply forces. The next one, to change the shape of an object, you can apply forces. To change the direction and to change the shape, also you can apply forces. Then finally, to rotate an object, you can apply a force. This effect is specially called as moment given by a force, moment, right? So these are the special cases or special things that you can do by applying any kind of a force on a certain object. If you are applying a force to an object, at least one of these things is going to happen to that object. Okay, right. So the basic things that we can do by applying forces are these, my dear children. Right then. So now we are going to see, right, now we discussed basic things related to the force. Basic things means a brief introduction to the force. What kind of a thing is called as a force? We studied that it is a push or a pull, and what kind of things that we can do in our day-to-day life by applying forces. Now we are going to discuss what are the other simple characteristics or properties related with the force. First, we are going to discuss about the magnitude of the force. Magnitude of the force. So, my dear children, a ball can be moved slowly by hitting slightly. If you hit it harder, it moves fast. Obvious, right? In playing cricket, you can observe this thing, right? Sometimes the cricketer or the batsman is playing defensive shots. When he is going to play defensive shots, ball is not moving that much faster. Actually, what playing a defensive shot means, the player or the batsman is going to stop the motion of the ball or reduce the speed of the ball coming towards him. Okay, defensive shots. Sometimes the player or the batsman is going to play aggressive shots, faster shots. Like if he want to make a boundary in the next ball, boundary means a 6 or else a 4. So in making a boundary, he's going to hit the ball hard as he can. Not like defense, he's going to hit it hard as he can. Hit hard as he can. So upon hitting the ball at that kind of a speed or at that kind of a when applying a force at that kind of a nature, definitely the ball would move very faster. Okay, right. So here it is given that if you a ball can be moved slowly by hitting slightly. If you hit it harder, it moves fast. Obvious, right? Okay. So when hitting slowly applies a small force, hitting fast applies a large force. Thus it is clear that a force has a magnitude. So my dear children, upon hitting way more faster hitting means applying a force at a greater magnitude. Greater magnitude means a value, at a greater value, at a higher value. So if a force is applied at a higher value, the object is going to move very fast. If a force is applied at a lower value, then the object is moving slowly, right? Slower. However, the two main cases that we can study in these two incidents is that definitely force should have a certain kind of a value, a magnitude. When the magnitude or the value is less, the effect given is also reduced. The motion given also reduced. Then, if the magnitude or the value of the force applied is greater or high, then the motion or the effect is also going to increase, or it's going to be high. So my dear children, it's obvious to us that upon applying forces, or when applying forces, my dear children, we need to consider about the magnitude of the force that you are going to apply. Magnitude of the force that you are going to apply. Let's take an instance of playing basketball. Now you are going to do a basket, right? You are going to throw a basket. Now you are here and that ring is over there. This is my ball. Now I am going to throw it. You have to apply a force so that the ball would travel through that ring and come down. If you apply a way more greater force, then the ball would travel beyond the basket and you will fail. If you apply a lesser magnitude of a force, then in that case also you lose the basket, because the ball is going to fall short. So my dear children, in order to do a basket, you have to apply the proper force. If the force is greater, then it will not go to the basket, but however it will pass the basket and travel to a different location. If the force that you are going to apply is less, then it will definitely fall short of the basket. In order to do a basket, you have to apply the certain amount of force, a proper amount of a force. If the value is high, then you can't do the basket. If the value is low, then also you can't do the basket. So the proper magnitude of the value of a force is really important in doing our day-to-day works, right? We have to apply the proper magnitude of a force in applying or when doing day-to-day works. So that means, my dear children, there is a definite value. Definitely there is a value for the forces that you are going to apply. This is the one which is referred as the magnitude of the force. Value of the force which you are going to apply. Magnitude. So spring balance is a simple equipment, right? Spring balance. So there are several equipment that can be used to measure the magnitude of a force. Spring balance is a simple equipment used for this purpose. What is inside of a spring balance is a spring that changes its length according to the force applied. It is calibrated according to the stretched length of the spring. Right. Now, if you take the measurement, how to measure the force which is being applied. There are several methods to measure. However, the probable method or the most popular method that we use to measure the force of a certain object is the spring balance. We use the spring balance thing to measure the force applied on a certain object. Right? We use the spring balance to measure the force applied on a certain object. So spring balance is the most common object or the tool that we use to measure the force. So here spring balance is a simple equipment used for this purpose. So inside a spring balance, my dear children, you can observe a spring. There is a spring within the spring balance like this, right? Spring is fixed like this. So upon applying forces or when pushing or pulling it, the length of the spring is going to change, right? Length of the spring is going to change upon applying forces. So the scale of the spring balance is calibrated according to the stretched length of the spring. So by using that scale, you can measure the amount of or the magnitude of the force. Okay, according to the stretched length of the spring, the scale is being calibrated. Okay, so this is the way that we can use to measure a force. The instrument that we use to measure a force is called the spring balance, the basic instrument. Okay, so here magnitude of the force. So these are the ones. So there are the two figures. So these are the ones which are called as the spring balancers, right? Here you can observe the spring balance, right? A commercial market, when you take it from the commercial market, a spring balance is like this. This is just a simple figure in order to identify the mechanism of the spring balance. So when you are going to hang an object, right, the spring is going to stretch down. So by that way, using the scale over here, you can measure it. How much is the value or the magnitude? Now you know what is the instrument that we use to measure the magnitude of a force, but you don't know how to measure it. What is the unit of measuring force? Now let's see what is the unit that we use to measure a force. There is a value, right? 5, 3, 10, like that we can measure the value. However, there should be a unit, no? There should be a unit, right? There should be a unit in order to measure the force. So here, there are several units to measure the magnitude of a force. According to the international system, SI unit, okay? International standard symbol, international standard unit, SI unit. The magnitude of force is measured in newtons, right? So we measure the magnitude of a force. We measure the magnitude of a force by using the unit called newtons. Newtons is the unit that we use to measure forces. Newtons, my dear children. So by using the unit called newtons, we measure the force. Okay, we measure the force by using the special unit called newtons, right? So there are spring balancers in school laboratories which are calibrated in newtons. Usually, my dear children, if you take a spring balance from your laboratory, those spring balancers are calibrated by using the scale newtons. However, we use this Newton balance thing in commercial markets to measure the masses of objects as well. Okay, masses of the objects as well. To measure the masses of the objects, we use the instrument called the spring balance. I think you have seen this thing, right? In the commercial markets, most of the times when those people who are coming to collect scraps, they have these spring balancers. Okay, waste scraps, those collectors, right? These guys have these spring balancers. It's easy to measure their masses by using a spring balance. All the scraps and all these stuffs is going to insert to a bag, then tie the bag, insert the hook of the spring balance, then lift it. By using the scale, you can measure it. Okay, the mass. So most of the times in our laboratories, if you are going to use a Newton balance in our laboratories, definitely it's been calibrated from newtons. But however, the spring balancers, okay, spring balancers that you used in commercial market, they might have a scale, or they have a scale calibrated with kilograms or grams in order to measure the masses of the objects. Sometimes you can observe the both the scales can be observed sometimes, right? So this is that kind of a figure. Here you can observe at the left hand side grams and at the right hand side newtons. Newtons and grams. So here spring balancers which are used for commercial purposes are usually calibrated in grams or kilograms. So commercial markets usually they are being calibrated by using kilograms or grams. Okay. However, in the laboratories, right? However, in the laboratories, we use the spring balance. In these laboratories spring balancers, the scale is calibrated from newtons. There can be grams as well or kilograms as well. But however, those spring balancers are mainly calibrated from newtons. Okay. There can be two scales like this. Right. So my dear children, this is how to measure the force, measure the magnitude of the force. We use the instrument called spring balance to measure the magnitude of the force and the unit called newtons to measure the force. Okay. Newtons is the unit. Spring balance is the instrument. Now let's see how to measure and take a value, right? How to measure and take a value related to a spring balance. How to measure a force and take a value by using a spring balance. So here you are given how to use a spring balance to measure a force. How we can use a spring balance to measure a force. So we'll be doing an activity, a simple activity. So here you are given the materials. So definitely you will be needing spring balance, a rock, a wood block, This is a spring, a helical spring. Okay, I'll mention just as a spring. Actually, this is called as a helical spring. Right? In simple, I'll mention as a spring. Then threads, right? Then a hook, right? A G-clamp, So these are the materials that you need. Okay, these are the materials, my dear children, that you need. You'll be needing a spring balance to measure to get a measurement related to the force. You'll be definitely needing a spring balance, then a rock, a wood block, a helical spring, then a thread, hook, and a G-clamp. Okay, so these are the materials that you need. So let's see how to conduct the activity. So here, tie the stone by a piece of thread, hang the stone on the spring balance as shown in figure 1 and take the reading. Figure 1, what do you have to do? Hang the stone by using the thread on the spring balance. Okay. Then what you have to do? You have to take the spring balance like this and get a reading. You have to get a reading. This reading gives the magnitude of the gravitational force exerted by the earth on the piece of the stone. This is known as the weight of the stone. When you go to next year, we'll be learning about weight and mass in full scale. However, up to now, I'll give you what do you mean by weight and mass. What is a simple definition for weight and mass? Very simple definition. Number 1, mass. Mass means the number of particles, in simple, the number of electrons, protons and neutrons or atoms contained within the material. Mass means number of particles contained within the material. Due to having certain number of particles, these particles are always pushed towards or pulled by the earth, right? These things are pushed towards the ground. Our earth is going to pull all of these materials towards the earth. This pull is referred as the gravitational pull. Actually, this thing is going to happen, this pull is going to occur because of the gravitational force exerted on the object. Who is going to exert that gravitational force? Our earth. So the gravity or the gravitational force is going to act on each and every object in our earth. So upon pulling by the earth, you know that pull is a force for each and every object on the earth. There is a certain type of a force which is going to act towards the earth. Okay, towards the earth, there is a certain bit of a force which is acting. So this force is referred as the weight. So mass and weight are two different facts, my dear children. Mass is just a number. It's reflecting about a count. Okay. It's reflecting about a count. Count means actually in the sense, mass means the number of particles, atoms contained within the matter. Okay. The number of atoms. It's just a count. If like for an example, let's imagine that a certain substance has 5 atoms. Then the mass of that thing is 5 units. That's it. Okay. So mass reflects a count. Mass reflects a count. But however, weight is not like that. Due to having those 5 units or 5 particles, those particles are always pulled by the earth, right? Always pulled by the earth. This pull is given by the gravitational pull or the gravitational force. So my dear children, the force by which these 5 particles are pulled towards the ground is referred as the weight of the object. It is referred as the weight of the object. Okay. Weight of the object. So here, upon hanging a stone like this on a spring balance, we are going to measure that gravitational pull given by the earth on the stone. This is referred as the weight of the stone. Weight of the stone. Weight. Weight. So weight is the factor or the force by which the material is being pulled towards the earth. Pull, a force. Okay, so here we are measuring the gravitational pull or the weight of the object by hanging the stone like this. Right. The second one. Fix the metal hook to the wooden block. Connect the spring balance to the hook as shown in figure 2. See here, you have to connect the hook to the block. Then after that, you have to insert the hook in here to that hook. Then what you have to do? Pull the spring balance while keeping it horizontally. Keep it horizontally and you have to pull it. Okay. Till the block just start to move. Just start to move, like it's going to shake. It's going to vibrate to start the motion. Take the reading of the spring balance. It is the magnitude of the force exerted by your hand on the wooden block. Now at the instance where it's going to vibrate and just start to move, you have to get the reading of the spring balance. By that way you can get a reading on the force that you have applied on the wooden block, right? Wooden block, right? The force which you have applied on wooden block in order to move that block to a certain location. Okay. So at the stage of the motion, when it is just starting to move, you can observe the force exerted by you on the wooden block. You can measure the force applied by using the spring balance, like according to the second figure. Right. Number 3. Fix firmly the wooden block with the metal hook to the tabletop using the G-clamp. Connect the helical spring, join the other end of the helical spring to the spring balance as shown in the figure. Now what you have to do? You have to clamp it by using the G-clamp to a tabletop. Then you have to insert the helical spring onto that hook over here, right? Then after that, what you have to do? Place the spring balance at the other end and you have to fix the hook of the spring balance to the hook of the helical spring like this, according to the figure number 3. Pull the spring balance till the length of the helical spring is increased by 10 centimeters. Then take the reading of the balance. And now what you have to do? You have to grab and hold and pull, right? So that the helical spring would increase the length or stretched up to 10 centimeters in length. Then you have to take the reading of the spring balance. Okay. Then you have to take the reading of the spring balance. So this is the way of doing our experiment, my dear children. Right. Once again, I'll explain what are the 3 steps. Number 1, here you have to take a piece of thread and hang the stone or the rock on the spring balance and to find out the weight, which is the gravitational pull given out by the earth on the stone. Okay, number 1. Then you have to place the wooden block, tie that hook, then you have to grab it and see when it is going to start the motion, how much is the force applied. Then in the third instance, you have to fix the spring over here, then clamp the wooden block, then you have to pull the spring up to like 10 centimeters, then find out the force applied on the spring. Right. Finally, tabulate all the readings obtained as per to the given table. So first instance, second instance, third instance, weight of the piece of the stone, right? Weight of the rock, force applied to pull the wooden block, force applied on the helical spring. You have to get the magnitude and fill the table. That's it. Okay. So this is the way of doing our experiment, my dear children. Now let's head on to the lab. We'll conduct the experiment and let's see what are our values in each of these instances. So my dear children, now we are about to conduct the activity, and within this activity we'll be measuring several forces by using the spring balance given here. So this is the instrument called the Newton balance or the spring balance in simple, right? Newton balance or the spring balance. So here you can clearly observe that this spring balance is calibrated from newtons. Here the scale, over here the scale is calibrated from newtons, and over here you can observe it's been calibrated from grams as well. So here within this one, right, within this one you can observe the calibration is done by using grams plus newtons both, right? So these types of spring balancers are the ones that we are using in our laboratories. Spring balancers or the Newton balancers. Right now we are about to measure the gravitational pull given by the earth on this piece of rock which I have here. Okay, so in order to measure that, by using the piece of thread, I have prepared a hook. Now let's insert this thing and we'll measure it. First of all, I'm going to take a good knot here so that I can hang the hook of the spring balance. Okay. So right now I'm going to check the gravitational pull given out by the stone by using the spring balance like this. Okay, so now we need to keep it horizontally like this. Right, as you can see here, now the rock is above the ground level and it is hanging, right? And you can see that the reading of the spring balance now have moved, it has been moved up to like how much in newtons. So it has a reading around 1.8 newtons. 1.8 newtons. So the rock over here is showing a 1.8 Newton of a reading. That's the gravitational pull. The gravity or the gravitational force acting along the acting towards the earth is pulling this rock at a force of 1.8 Newton. 1.8 Newton here. Right? 1.8 Newton. Okay then. So my dear children, our first reading, the gravitational pull given by the rock was 1.8 newtons. 1.8 newtons. Now I have, so let's keep it in a different place. So now I have a wooden block here with me. Now I have fixed the hook onto the wooden block so that I can drag it along the surface. So while I am dragging it along the surface, I am going to calculate how much the horizontal force which I need to give in order to like start the motion of the object. I am not going to move it like very fast. I am just going to start the motion of the wooden block, that's it, by applying certain force. Right, now I have inserted this thing. Now by using the spring balance, I am going to check how much of a force do I need to apply in order to move the object. I'm not going to move it very fast, remember, I'm just going to move it, just going to start the motion. So as you can see here, now the reading is up to 2 Newton. 2.1 Newton. 2.5. So once again, let's see. Then keep it in here. Get a reading at the place where the motion starts. So yes, here 1.5, 2 newtons, 2 newtons. Now the reading is at 2 newton, and you can see that the object is going to start the motion. Just start the motion. Once again, see. 2 newtons, 2 newtons, yes, at 2 newtons of a force, right, at 2 newtons of a force, object is just starting to move. Yes, when the marker runs greater than 2 newton, it's suddenly going to start the move. So at around 2 newton, you can see it clearly, our wooden block is going to start the motion. So that's the force which I have applied to just start the motion of the wooden block. So here it's nearly, we can round it off to nearly 2 newton, right? 2 newton. So earlier the gravitational pull given by the rock was 1.8 newton. Now to slightly move the wooden block, we had to apply 2 newton of a force. 2 newton of a force. Right then, now what we are going to do is, we are going to hold this thing horizontally, firmly on the table, and we are going to apply, we are going to use that spring, helical spring, and we are going to apply a certain force in order to increase the length up to 10 centimeters, up to 10 centimeters. Okay, then I'm going to measure out the force which I need to exert on the spring in order to increase the length up to 10 centimeters. Right then, so I have with me, right, I have with me the materials which I need to conduct the third stage of the activity. So this is the one which is referred as the G clamp, my dear children. As it is in the shape of the letter G, this is referred as the G clamp. By like tying up this lever, we can tie any kind of a thing or fix any kind of a thing to a support by using the G clamp. So here, now in here I have fixed a ruler to the tabletop so that I can measure the length up to 10 centimeters. Okay, so I'm going to take this helical spring and fix it onto the hook here. Here you can observe the reading is at exactly 10 centimeters. So I'm going to increase the length of the spring, helical spring which I have here, up to 10 centimeter of a length. Okay, so first of all I'm going to fix this. By using the G clamp, I am going to fix this thing to the tabletop first. Okay, so it's firmly fixed to the tabletop. So this is the ruler, as you can see here. This is 10 centimeter of a length, 10 centimeter of a length. So first of all I'm going to insert the spring here, right? So now let's take the distance to 10. Okay, now it's exactly at 10, aligning with 10 centimeters. right? It's aligning with 10 centimeter mark, as you can see here. Now I'm going to insert the Newton balance. Here we go. Then I'm going to push towards that side. I'm going to apply a certain force and pull this thing, right? So let's pull up to 0. Right. Here we go then. So children, as you can see here, now I have stretched it up to 10 centimeters. Now the reading is exactly at 3 newtons, right? Reading is exactly at 3 newtons. 3 newton of a force is being applied on the spring now to stretch it up to 10 centimeter of a distance, right? 3 newtons. Right. So we got the reading that was necessary when conducting or when applying forces, right? So we took the gravitational pull given out by the earth on that particular rock as 1.8 Newton. Then in order to move this wooden block horizontally, right, just start to move the wooden block, I had to apply 1.2 Newton of a force. 1.8 was the gravitational acceleration, gravitational pull given out by the earth on that particular rock. Here I had to apply 2 Newton of a force in order to move the wooden block horizontally. Just start to move. Okay. Then to increase the length of the spring up to 10 centimeter of a distance, I had to apply 3 Newton of a force. So these are the 3 cases and these are the 3 readings which I have took from the activity. So let's head on to the classroom and we'll fill out that table from our observations. So my dear children, we conducted the activity and you could clearly observe that we can measure the magnitude of the force by using the Newton spring balance. And you could observe that the spring balance which I have used also calibrated from both grams and newtons, right? So now let's tabulate our readings. So weight of the piece of stone or the rock which I have used, so it was around 1.8 Newton. It was around 1.8 Newton. Force applied to pull the wooden rock, right? Wooden block. Force applied to pull the wooden block. So the force which I have applied to pull the wooden block was around 2 Newton. Actually, it's somewhat greater than 2 Newton, right? At 2 Newton, it just starting to move. It was just starting to move. The motion of the wood block, right, just started to move under 2 Newton of a force. So to pull the wooden block, the minimum force which I have applied is 2 Newton. So we'll write down that value. So 2 Newton is the answer. 2 Newton. Force applied on helical spring. So on the helical spring, to stretch it to 10 centimeter of a length, we applied 3 Newton of a force. 3 Newton. 3 Newton. So 1.8 Newton, 2 Newton and 3 Newton is the answer. So what is the conclusion that we can take from this experiment, my dear children? So it's really simple. You know that we can measure the forces. We can get a magnitude of the force by using the spring balance, right? So we can write our answer. Magnitude of a force magnitude of a force can be measured from magnitude of a force can be measured from Newton spring balance. This is the final conclusion that we can take from the experiment, my dear children. Right then. So we have discussed several things related to the lesson called force, right? I have given you a simple introduction, right? Then after that we discuss what are the units that used to measure the forces and the instrument which used to measure the forces and so on. So my dear children, we'll be discussing further things related to the lesson from our next chapter.